Hello, I wanted to talk about three elements of design that are part of the design process, and they are brand management, sustainability, and material culture. And we've talked a little bit about those before, but I wanted to just share some of the approaches taken towards addressing those three issues in design, and I do them with interrogatories, kind of the specific questions that elicit a response, elicit some thought about it. Brand management we could talk about for a long time, but brand management is very important. Brand managers protect brand. A lot of value, company value, is associated with the brand, and many parts of it have to be protected to maintain a brand's value. One of the big advantages of a brand is it lets you introduce new products quickly because you have a customer base, and the brand offers a nice greased skid to introduce a new product. So it's a very good platform to work from if you're dealing with new product design. But brands can be much broader. Brands can involve more than just the product and the whole lifestyle associated with the brand. So you have brand lifestyles that get portrayed, and emotions, and sort of social connections that can be attributed to a brand, and all those add value to a brand beyond just specific products or experiences. So brand management is important, and some of the questions I ask about brand connection is first identifying the location of the company and the designers, trying to get a sense for the cultural basis for the brand, a little bit of its history in that regard, and then I ask about the themes associated with the brand, and these are typically obtained qualitatively through focus groups or some other methods. What action words are associated with the brand? What do people think about with the brand? What emotions are associated with it? What activities are associated with the brand? These sort of things. Then the verbal and graphic associations of the brand. What taglines? By verbal associations in this case I mean, what are the taglines? What does a company present as a verbal connection with their brand in advertising typically, or whatever vehicle you can find information on taglines. Graphic depiction of the brand is important. What images are associated with it, what does their logo look like, that sort of thing, prominent colors and so on. And then finally, in the broad sense, the question is, how does your design connect with the brand, and how does it not connect with the brand? And that's not an easy question to answer, but it's one that does need to be answered. How does this product support a brand? And another issue is sustainability. So sustainability is a broad issue, and I have some questions associated with that too. And sustainability is best discussed in looking at life cycle assessment of the product. Here we're talking more about products. And when you look at sustainability, you're asking about embodied energy associated with all elements of the product. So when materials are extracted that are used in your product, so hydrocarbons for plastics, for example, the question is, what are the ecological effects of extracting hydrocarbons? What are the political and social consequences of that extraction? And when we look at embodied energy, we're not just asking about the cost of the material. We're saying, what are the other costs, social costs associated with it? And some of these are pollution and water degradation and air degradation and all these sorts of things. And this isn't intended to be a political inquiry, but it's an honest assessment of what goes on. So if I'm reclaiming sunken timbers and I'm using them in something, in a room or in a building, they're not free, even though they're being reused. You have to get a crane over to the river, you have to lift those things out, you have people that are driving their cars to get to the job site, you're drying the wood, you're transporting the wood on trucks that generate particulates of nitrous oxide and these sort of things. So there are true costs associated even with these sort of environmentally friendly processes. Certainly wind turbines are that way, photovoltaic plants and such are all that way too. There are environmental costs associated with this, and they're best described by the notion of embodied energy, which is looking at the extraction through transportation of materials, including processing and all these sorts of things. So the questions that are asked in connection with a new product and sustainability are these sort of questions. What are the raw materials used in the product? How are they extracted? What are the political and social consequences of that extraction? And then moving from extraction to transportation. So you take raw materials, move them to some processing site, and there again you have transportation issues, and here we're talking about ecological issues. So if you get 35 feet per mile like you do on a container ship, it's still a real efficient way to transport things, but you are producing particulates and sulfur oxides and such, so there's an ecological impact for transporting things. Then you're looking at, for the processed area to the manufactured area, or maybe several processes. There's transportation involved with that. Manufacturing, there's ecological issues associated with that, for whether it be heat treating or injection molding or any kind of heating process or cooling process. There's all these things associated with it. If you use electricity, in the United States you're tapping into half the time coal-fired plants, so you've got air toxics involved, mercury, dioxins, furans, these sort of things. And of course you do with other electrical generation systems as well, but electricity is not free, and electricity produces air pollution. And again, this isn't intended to be political or ecological, but those are, I think, well understood facts. Then you're looking at how is your product used, and then finally disposed of. So some years ago, design for manufacturing was a big issue. So you wanted to design products that could be easily assembled and logically assembled and efficiently assembled. And now we're asking another question: how do you recycle this thing? How do you disassemble the material so you can pull out the batteries and pull out the valuable metals and pull out other materials that can be recycled? And so that's an important question. If you can facilitate that, that's helpful design, especially in connection with materials that can be hazardous or can be or valuable products such as copper and copper alloys and aluminum and chromium steel and these sort of things. And the mantra of reduce, reuse, and recycle is very true. Here we're talking about the recycling, which is sort of the lowest type of reclamation in a general sense, because recycling requires separation of materials, cleaning of materials, some kind of processing, often heating, which of course has these downstream issues of air pollution and water pollution and so on. Reducing is the best, reusing is the second best, and recycling is the least best. So you could ask the question could be, can this thing be reused in some fashion? So those are the questions asked regarding sustainability. And finally, material culture, which is looking at our association with a material, with a product in looking at the heritage of the culture and saying, you know, how does this tie in with our culture? And this is an issue especially important when you're dealing with cultures that are not your own. So I have a few questions that I ask regarding that. So you're asking the question, does this product have an import beyond just its performance? In other words, does it show up in family photographs? Is it something that's handed off generation to generation? Is it something that you show off to other people? Is it something that you value more highly than you might expect? And on the other hand, are there features of this product that would make it unattractive to a culture? And this could, you know, colors, one of the more obvious ones, the name of the product, the form of the product. All these things could make them unattractive to the culture. So, you know, I asked certain questions about this that relate to the history of the country that you're looking at or a culture that you're looking at, recognizing visual stereotypes of that country. What do they expect to see in a chair? What do they expect to see in a lamp? What do they expect to see in a wrench? These sort of things. Then is the product used in special applications for that culture? So in the American culture, you think of an oven being sized for a turkey. You think of the refrigerator or freezer sized for a frozen pizza. You think of refrigerators as relating somehow to how often one goes to the market or how big a vehicle you have to transport food to your home. And that all these things come into play, and they're specific to a culture. So that's a real broad and important question. And then how is the product disposed of? And this is, do people throw the toaster in the garbage, or do they hand it off to their children as an heirloom? Again, toasters aren't the best example, but things like chairs, furniture, all sorts are good examples of that. Certainly jewelry, certain small soft goods are that way too. So important question. Do the products show up, as I mentioned before, in family photographs? Is there an heirloom quality to things? And then finally, you're asking the question, how does this product align itself with material culture? To actually articulate, how is it aligned? And then the converse is to be asked as well, which is how does it not align itself with material culture? So you can see certain cultures will have an ideal that's represented on TV programming or advertising, and then there's a reality, and that reality is approached ethnographically. And how do people really use things? What do they really value? But the things that you see on TV or other public portrayals is important because that might be an ideal for that culture. And if you can satiate that, there might be potential in terms of marketability. So anyway, that's a summary of a few items that are involved with design. Again, here now we looked at sustainability, brand, and material culture. Thank you.